Ethan eagerly led the way up the creaking attic steps, his shoes kicking up clouds of dust with each footfall. Despite his usual reticence, even Liam found curiosity getting the better of him on this gloomy afternoon, cooped up in their family's vast but empty old mansion. Last one to the back is a rotten egg, Ethan called, taking the steps two at a time in his enthusiasm. Liam followed more slowly, eyeing the aged, warped wood skeptically, though they had explored every nook and cranny of the lower levels countless times. The sprawling attic remained shrouded in mystery, a place his parents forbade them entry, claiming it too cluttered and hazardous for children. But with rain lashing heavy against every window and boredom setting in hard, even forbidden frontiers seemed ripe for discovering. As Ethan's footsteps faded deeper into the shadows above, Liam paused midway to peer up into the cavernous space. Faint beams of gray light filtered through grimy windows, set high under the eaves, barely illuminating the borders of towering piles of junk ascending into the gloom. Ancient steamer trunks, oil portraits swathed in sheets, stacks of moldering books and creaking wardrobes crammed every inch. The choking scent of dust and mildew hung thick as a woolen curtain. Shivering, Liam pulled his sweater tighter and resumed climbing. An eerie whisper seemed to tickle the back of his mind, but he shook his head dismissively, just the wind finding its way down through the rafters. Nothing more. Ethan. His call echoed in the vast chamber. No reply came, though something shifted in the piles ahead, raining dust from above. A trick of shadow and scattered light, no doubt. Liam paused to listen hard over the pounding rain. Still nothing but the creaks and groans of an old house settling. "Come on, don't be shy." He tried for a playful tone, but it shook with growing unease. His brother's mischievous nature usually wouldn't allow for extended hiding without answering a direct challenge. The utter silence unnerved Liam more than any response could. Swallowing hard, he plunged deeper, waving away clouds of dust as he gingerly picked a path through the towering stacks. Shafts of gray filtered between looming shapes as Liam dodged jagged edges and rotting wood. He passed an upright piano shrouded in a winding sheet like a ghost, flecks of ivory poking through white tatters. Ancient Scrabble sets spilled their letter tiles across his path. Through a maze of trunks and rattling crates, bundles of vintage clothing suspended from overhead pulleys added to the surreal atmosphere. A faint scurrying made the hairs on Liam's neck rise. Though whether rodent or something less natural, he dared not speculate. The temperature seemed to plummet with each step into the labyrinthine gloom. His searching calls echoed back mockingly as panic tightened its claws. How easily could one become lost in this nightmare realm? Stray too far, and even retracing steps back proved impossible. The towering piles had rearranged themselves into a new and threatening geography under cover of shadow. A strange whispering now seemed to rise all around, as if myriad tormented souls murmur just beyond hearing within the walls. Liam whirled at every faint noise, seeing hallucinatory movements where only dust danced in thin streams of murky light. Some huge shape shifted with a crash in the murk directly ahead. Raining a choking cloud, Liam gasped, stumbling back off balance into a precarious pile that groaned under his sudden weight. Thorns of wood and jagged edges promised injury if it gave way. Heart thrashing. He froze perfectly still, hardly daring to breathe as blind terror grasped his throat. Whatever had moved was very large, very close, and utterly silent now in its lurking. Heavy footfalls would surely have followed such a massive displacement of debris. A tiny whimper escaped Liam's constricted lungs. He begged any higher power for deliverance from this nightmare, for Ethan's continued safety, for the means to escape this eerie graveyard unharmed. A giggle drifted out of the shadows directly ahead. Liam's blood turned to ice in his veins at the familiar voice, distorted almost beyond recognition. Something was very wrong with Ethan, changed in a way that struck horror, deep as any claw or fang ever could. Liam forced the terrified whisper through numbed lips, squeezing his eyes shut against the awful truth beginning to dawn. When only mocking laughter answered, Liam knew he had to run. Now, Liam spun and crashed blindly back the way he had come. No thought left but to flee the monstrous presence pursuing through the piles. The towering stacks seemed to lean in and engulf the narrow pathways he had so painstakingly picked, shifting like living things to block his escape. Thorns and splinters tore through his sweater as he struggled onward, eyes stinging and blurred with panic. Heart pounding, fit to burst, Liam fled headlong until momentum carried him flailing into empty space where the piles abruptly ended. He crashed painfully to the floor, in a heap, instinctively curling into a ball, as choking clouds of dust billowed up around him. For long moments, he lay gasping, shards of wood and paint flecking from his clothes with each rapid rise and fall of his chest. Perspiration had left a sheen across his skin, yet underneath a clammy cold still gripped his core. Slowly, Liam pried open streaming eyes and wiped damp hair from his forehead with a shaking hand. Shadows towered impenetrably on all sides, the towering constructions of decades lurking like silent sentinels, encircling some disused courtyard. Liam slowly stood on legs like jelly, hugging his middle as dancing lights swarmed his vision, to collapse once more into unrelenting darkness seemed dreadfully inviting after the hellish ordeal. Yet Ethan's desperate plight pressed him onward. He had to find help, had to escape this nightmare realm before the presence stalking its depths caught up to drag him down into the abyss forever. Already the mocking laughter seemed to echo from every blind angle, a maddening chorus jeering his flagging spirit. Liam set his jaw and broke into a determined limp, following the faintest slope downward toward what he prayed offered deliverance. As his eyes adjusted further to the feeble light leaking down, Liam began to make out strange hieroglyphs scrawled haphazardly upon the towering pillar nearest him. The crazed scribbling seemed to writhe under his scrutiny, pushing him to jerk his gaze away with a shudder. Something deeply unnatural lingered within these walls, and its grip had clearly claimed Ethan as its newest victim. On Liam, pressed with increasing urgency, swerving clumsily between the piles towering like the columns of a crumbling temple. His every step threatened to land upon some hidden trapdoor or rotted board, hurling him down into lightless spaces below. Glass shards and wicked thorns tore freely through fabric, already hanging in tatters, yet bare flesh remained his sole concern. If escape proved impossible, at least he had to survive long enough to save Ethan. A fluttering caught Liam's periphery, and he nearly succumbed to hysteria as myriad pages ripped free of some moldering tomes directly ahead. The ancient parchment sheets spun on unseen tongues of air like confetti, flecking his hair and clothes with fragments of air like confetti, flecking his hair and clothes with fragments of arcane tech. He flung up an arm to shield streaming eyes, stumbled, and very nearly tumbled into yet more thrashing pages, pooling thick upon the floor. Heart and throat, Liam regained his feet in a panic and blundered onward, half blind. Something huge had clearly stirred amid these piles, but moments ago, leaving wake of mysteries in its passing. All around, sigils and crazed scrawls leered mockingly from the stacks, like esoteric signposts guiding lost souls ever deeper into the maze. A shriek rang out from impossibly close, yanking Liam from his desperate flight with a choking gasp. His heart simply stopped as echoes faded, for in that awful moment, he recognized the tormented cry as Ethan's. Wheeling frantically, he crashed full tilt into a pile directly behind with an impact like a cannon blast. Wood and plaster erupted, hurling Liam down amid a choking maelstrom. For endless seconds, he lay stunned, fighting to breathe through a pain more soaring than any knife. Broken fragments shifted and grating overhead threatened further collapse at any moment. Yet still, that petrified shriek echoed endlessly within his mind. Ethan needed him. With a ragged battle cry merging horror and desperation, Liam heaved himself up once more through gritted teeth. Every movement sent white-hot agony lancing through his shredded form. Yet still he endured, fueled by love for his brother alone. Not yet would he surrender this cursed life, while even the faintest hope remained to save Ethan from the terrors stalking these walls. A gaping fissure had opened amid the fractured stacks, spilling flickering light from below that cast dark shadows. Gathering his resolve, Liam wiped the blood from his eyes with the last shreds of his sweater sleeve and began to descend with limping, staggering steps. Deeper into the abyss, he was drawn toward salvation, or the maw, awaiting to consume his broken soul entirely. With each painful descent into the depths, the light grew brighter, though no less eerie. Liam dragged himself doggedly downward through the splintered gap left by his brutal impact, slicing his bare feet ever deeper, yet numb to any sensation but an inner imperative. Ethan's scream had faded to hollow echoes long ago, yet still Liam followed the agony's traces to its source through sheer force of will. Death would take him easily upon these cruel passages, but while breath remained, his duty was clear. On the next level, down, a thick carpet cushioned his plummeting steps. Shocking, scant relief to limbs, turn to flame. Pausing to regain fleeting strength, Liam lifted streaming eyes to find himself standing amid an ornate bedroom, frozen forever in time. Layer upon layer of dust-coated antique furnishings, untouched for decades. Gray veils, muting ornate details, almost beyond recognition. Paintings still adorned hairline. Cracked walls, portraits of dour patrician lineages, long faded into obscurity. A four-poster bed framed by tattered silks sank heavily under its shroud, promising little rest for the dead or living. Liam slowly peeled back a grimy curtain to find only more dust and splinters within. Faint impressions, where two small forms once slept undisturbed. An heirloom rocking horse stood sentinel in one corner, veiled by its own coat of centuries. Even decay held an air of violated sanctity here that raised hackles along Liam's torn flesh. He backed hastily from the chamber, turned and very nearly leapt from his skin in terror. A withered twin stood framed by the gap, flesh long since belonging to worms and every bone protruding starkly beneath translucent skin. Pieces of moldering velvet clung in tatters, yet could not disguise the gray grin stretching gaunt cheeks into a rictus leer. For endless seconds, Liam simply stared, paralyzed into the decrepit facade preserving some esoteric warning from the past. Bells chimed frantically within his skull, yet produced no sound. Sane thought overtaken entirely by horror's grip. Then, with glass-shattering force, came comprehension of what lay grinning just beyond. With a strangled cry, Liam lurched past the grotesque and plunged headlong down the spiraling staircase beyond. Careening from splintered banister to blood, slick wall in his frenzied descent, no traction could slow his plummeting. Survival instinct alone drove him headlong into unknown terrors below, with the desiccated apparition in swift pursuit. Some small, sane remnant registered his screams, echoing up through bare levels, long stripped of life or luxury. Yet the howling maelstrom within drowned all but a single imperative: escape this nightmare. Escape, the charnel spectre dogging his every step down toward whatever uncanny mistress awaited her prey. Strange sense assaulted Liam's frayed senses as he tumbled from the final landing, collapsing into a posture of supplication before whatever dark altar awaited unveiling. Blood, myrrh, and older spices permeated the thick air in this windowless sarcophagus, caressing memories of esoteric rites once conducted in blasphemous secrecy. Slowly, Liam forced eyes clouded by a red haze to open upon his doom. All restraints upon sanity and faith came undone in that moment, shattering under the relentless gaze of the monstrosity regarding him calmly from its desacralized chamber. Liam knew not how long he lay broken before that dread visage, mind cleaved utterly from its moorings by the blasphemies revealed. All sense of time and self bled away upon that ritual chamber's defiled altar, lost to the fathomless abyss of insanity ever threatening to consume what little still clung to existence. Only a brutal, instinctual will to survive stored some vestigial flame of life within his shattered vessel. At some point, the monstrous presence inclined its nightmare head in a hideous parody of curiosity regarding the broken thing twitching upon the flagstones. A susurrus filled the chamber, a crawling whisper, more felt than heard, as horrors beyond imagining slipped free of tattered jaws. Liam retched, though his limbs obeyed him, not, spiraling ever deeper into the vortex, summoning his shattered soul to oblivion. Slowly, agonizingly, sensation returned in sparse, excruciating increments. Liam became gradually aware of his ragged breathing, a copper tang pooling his mouth and viper, like pains lancing through flesh, rent and rent. The thing observing him remained, an unspeakable weight pressing all light and hope into crushing dark. Still, its umwelt whispers curled around Liam's broken mind, binding fast the last tatters of autonomy and reason. A giggle like shattered glass pierced the susurrus. Ethan's voice, but warped nearly past recognition by some monstrous corruption. Liam jerked in a parody of helpless seizing upon that smallest trace of his brother, some untouchable flame, deep within yet guttered to life once more. Ethan remained, and while that remained true, no darkness could claim him utterly. With immense effort, Liam prized open, gummed eyelids still crusted with drying tears. The vision resolving before him very nearly sent him spiraling back into the abyss forever. Yet, through some miracle of inner steel, that small spark held steady against the fresh tides of horror and madness threatening to drown all light. Ethan stood beside the unspeakable thing, face twisted in a rictus not his own, eyes shone with alien malice, hands ending in talons now caressed gray flesh, split by a nightmarish maw. His giggle rose again to scrape Liam's weeping nerves, raw as the abomination crooned awful endearments, stroking matted hair with utmost tenderness. A keening wail started deep in Liam's core as sanity and humanity came undone before a desecration of innocent life. Somehow, he found strength to surge up on hands and knees, screeching profanities and threats alike into the cavernous space. His very soul. He would sacrifice to deliver Ethan from this depraved nightmare. The things tilted their blasphemous heads in unison, regarding the pathetic thing daring to break their profane congress. Fear and rage wrestled for dominance within Liam's shattered vessel as he was reduced to a mewling, spitting animal before their awful majesty. Any instant that Nightmare Mao could cleave his hapless form, ending forever his struggle and suffering. Yet, still, he found voice to scream defiance into that witching charnel house, as if sheer volume alone could shield Ethan from further corruption, as if pitiful souls like theirs still held any sway over such primal forces of blasphemy and violation. Time seemed frozen amid that unholy nexus where mortal will yet dare to front elder evils. A guttural susurrus answered Liam's failed rebellion, spelling doom in the crawling whispers of innumerable tormented souls. The abomination's talons flexed slowly as it peeled back shredding flesh to grin, its nightmarish maw ever wider, blotting out all light, hope, and reason. His end was nigh, and all existence teetered upon the brink as that monstrous head began to lean down. As splintering jaws yawned to consume their broken prey, a cacophonous crash echoed from above. Liam flinched, curling instinctively around Ethan as splinters rained. The abomination reared its misshapen skull with a hiss, stalking toward the entrance in a shuffle of broken limbs. Heavy footfalls shook, falling dust from decaying rafters high overhead. In those few frozen moments, Liam seized his chance. Encasing Ethan protectively in his torn embrace, he lunged toward the rickety stair finally revealed behind rotting hangings. Splintered wood screamed under scrabbling feet as they gained the first landing. Above, thunderous impacts shook the crumbling walls themselves. A bestial howl ripped the lowering air, shuddering the very foundations and raising primal shivers along Liam's form. He redoubled his efforts, half dragging Ethan's mewling vessel up through clinging shadows as tons of wreckage shifted and collapsed behind in an unholy maelstrom. Charnel dust choked every breath, yet still he endured. Salvation, their sole vector, as ruin consumed the hellish antechamber entirely. Bursting into alien twilight beyond some fissure lip, Liam collapsed shuddering amid wreckage and tonight's first stars, glittering cold overhead. For long moments he lay gasping as Ethan thrashed mindlessly, lost to whatever abyss now claimed his innocent soul. Time seemed frozen, as if this blighted veil, itself balanced upon the brink between worlds secular and profane. Slowly, Liam prized himself upright once more through sheer force of indomitable will, gathering Ethan's wailing form protectively within his shredded embrace. Crimson tears streamed anew as reality washed over him in renewed waves of horror Anguish and disbelief mingled. They had endured some miraculous deliverance, yet the cost remained incalculable. Ethan was lost, taken by powers more depraved than any nightmare. All childhood innocence and light of hope were extinct within his shattered vessel. Looking upon that tormented visage, now twisted almost beyond recognition, tore open scabbing wounds, deeper than any charnel keeps could fathom. A keening wail rent the moldering veil, as Liam was reduced once more to an animal, howling its loss and rage to the uncaring stars. His very soul threatened to tear asunder, unraveling into the maelstrom, consuming his little brother before his eyes. Only an inner furnace, forged of love beyond mortal ken, held the tattered remnants of his being from scattering upon the profane winds, blighting this cursed place. Time ceased meaning, as Liam lost himself to anguished grieving. Yet something eventually stirred his fading senses. A faint scritching sounded amid the encroaching rubble, raising primal shivers along his flesh, yet holding no malice. Slowly, Liam pried open streaming eyes and was met by a tiny bat fluttered before his tear-stained face, alighting upon a splinter with gossamer wings outspread. It tilted its hairless skull as if sharing some esoteric wisdom in its liquid gaze, an uncanny intelligence reflecting starlight. For several turns, it held Liam's leaking eyes with its own, some unspoken communion, passing beyond all human ken. Slowly, life and hope began to kindle once more within Liam's shattered form. A meaning was imparted through that profound yet wordless exchange, raising his shattered spirit from the ashes of loss and madness. His destiny was not yet complete. Ethan's was not yet beyond salvation. While life in any form yet remained, all was not lost to darkness. With immense care, Liam lay down his brother's mewling vessel and stood on legs like water, yet unbroken, his tear-stained visage lifted to a night sky, spiraling with portents, as resolve tempered to steel within his mortal frame. This profane place would not claim another innocent soul without a fight to its dying breath. Beyond this blighted veil lay aid and salvation, if he but persisted to find it. Liam gazed once more upon the tiny famulus, observing with uncanny patience, gathering resolve from its fathomless eyes, reflecting hope itself. His course was clear. The battle to save Ethan had only just begun. Liam gathered Ethan's shuddering form once more into his embrace, willing what strength remained through contact with warm flesh. The tiny bat flitted ahead into the ruins, a speck of starlight guiding their footsteps toward whatever fate awaited. All through that timeless night, they walked eternal ruins beneath the wheeling stars, winding ever deeper. Traces of humanity faded as the realm grew more feral and decayed, yet still, that guiding spark led onward without pause. Liam clung to hope and purpose as his only bulwarks against the encroaching void, Ethan's whimpers acting as lodestone for his ruin, weary heart. Dawn began to brush the horizon in palest gray as the ruins coalesced into a vast hollow, surrounded by insurmountable rubble. Broken columns marched endlessly amid rank jungle, creeping into mansion and church alike. Within that primordial glade, Liam finally collapsed with Ethan's shuddering form once more clutched protectively to his breast. Sleep took them quickly, despite the encroaching alien dawn singing its bittersweet melodies upon the wind. And as Liam's eyes fluttered shut amid the encroaching flora, A shadow detached itself from columnar cover and began advancing with uncanny stealth. Visions assailed Liam's fitful rest, glimpses of past atrocities enacted within these blighted walls. Blood rituals and violated corpses writhed behind closed lids as elder forces worked their inscrutable will upon the mansion and lands. Generations of souls, claimed as tribute to whatever nameless idol slept beneath, forming a charnel tree nourished by racked bones and sacrificed flesh. Then came a touch upon his shoulder, light as gossamer, yet jolting Liam back to ragged wakefulness. Instinct brought his hands clawing as he spun with feral cry, finding only a hooded shape silhouetted against the rising sun. "Peace, young pilgrim," came a mellow voice from shadowed cowl, holding up slender hands. "I mean you no harm, but come to offer aid in your dark hour of need." Liam paused, lowering Ethan's shuddering form carefully as reason returned. Before him stood a wisp of a man, garbed in moldering robes, exuding an uncanny air of patience and wisdom honed by untold years. Something deep within fluttered in recognition of a kindred spirit, staying his hand from rash violence. "Who? What are you?" Liam crooked, eyes drifting warily to Ethan's tormented visage once more. "How can you help my brother after?" "All in good time, young traveler," soothed the wraith-like form, setting down a leather satchel gently. "For now, nourishment and dressings will aid your battered forms. Then we may commune and seek solutions beyond normal kin." Within those careworn bags lay salves, poultices, and dried provisions, like manna amid the ruins. Liam worked silently, almost trance-like, allowing the robed stranger to tend Ethan's ravaged psyche with practice beyond mortal skill. Renewed when the sun stood full, he finally met those fathomless eyes once more, with nature's blessings. "Now, let us speak." As brothers in suffering came the mellow tone. "For I know this place is few, and its profane mysteries. Tell me all that passed within those blighted walls, and we shall see what can be done." Liam recounted all that had transpired with the unburdening of a soul, from first footsteps in that doomed attic to escaping hell's slavering jaws by some thread of fate. His voice remained heavy with anguish, yet steadied under the soothing presence's kindly gaze, nursing hope where only despair had dwelt. When all fell silent once more, the stranger inclined his cowled face in thought. Long moments blurred as old instincts warred. Then resolve kindled within fathomless eyes, lifting once more to Liam's own. "A dark path lies before you, pilgrim, yet hope remains where courage endures. This blighted house holds a cancer at its heart that poisons the land, and only through ordeal may its evil be checkmated." A taloned hand emerged to proffer a curved dagger upon tarnished silk, graven with sigils that roiled the mind's eye. Liam accepted it, hesitantly, shock rippling at the weight of fell purpose in his palm. "A blood pact lies before you to empower an exorcism, breaking the coven's hold and freeing souls. Succeed, and salvation shall follow your brother. Fail, and both are lost to the night forever." Dread constricted Liam's throat, yet he swallowed compulsively, turning the terrible blade under gathering dusk. His own blood might ransom Ethan's soul. What choice remained but to embrace any hope, however slim? Weakly, he nodded. A ghoul grin split the robed stranger's withered features, revealing rot beneath. Wizened hands seized Liam's shoulders in a crushing vice as unholy strength flooded tortured limbs once more. Then let the rites commence. Night falls, and in darkness our powers shall bloom. Away swept the ruins, as fell chants rent the air, transporting Liam and his writhing burden to hellish purposes. They stood within a cyclopean antechamber, whose black basalt walls drank the last light. Ceremonial dais dominating nightmares carved in polished stone. Blackest blasphemy spilled from the stranger's throat as tendrils coalesced from shifting shadows, taking formless shapes that set Liam's sanity ablaze. Ethan shrieked as talons tore his flesh, a new, vile ichor spurting the sigil, graven floor. Stealing resolve, Liam withdrew the fell dagger with a cry and slashed his own veins, essence pooling the runes in obscene baptism. Death screams rent the lightless vault as elder forces responded to their summoners, slithering up from the churning well of night to claim their purchase in the flesh. Agony such as mortal minds were never meant to know consumed Liam then, as the Cabal welded their infernal pact. Through the fires of hell, his sanity was rent, soul dangling by threads over an event horizon of utter chaos and night. Only the faintest spark remained by which to guide himself back from the cusp of madness entire. When vision cleared once more, Liam found himself amid ruins. As dawn broke, the pale light like knives in his skull. All traces of the rite had vanished without a whisper, and Ethan lay mute but untouched beside. Only a faint whisper lingered at the border of hearing. Seek the well at midnight. Your trial has just begun. Night fell once more as an uneasy calm, yet within Liam's aching mind, a storm raged without quarter. All that had transpired beyond the veil could scarce be accepted by rational thought. Yet some new instinct now guided his heavy footsteps toward confrontation. Ethan shuffled behind, broken spirit now tethered to Liam alone. Through brooding ruins they picked their way as stars awoke, following some unerring pull toward the manor's heart of darkness. Heavy silence reigned unbroken, but for their passing, as if all life and sentience fled this accursed ground. Memory's torturous whispers brought only deepening dread. Yet still, Liam endured their poisoning for the hope of salvation. A great crumbling edifice arose as a behemoth bulk against the shrouded heavens, shifting shadows betraying half-glimpsed nightmares stirring within. Still, Liam pressed on as his charge shuffled mindlessly, following threads of fate to their final veil of tears. Before aged double doors rotting on rusted hinges, he paused to steel weakened resolve beneath night's cold gaze. At his subtle nudge, one panel crumbled inward with a despairing groan. Beyond yawned a portal to blasphemous hell, fit only for darkest mysteries and profanation of all living souls. Yet still, Liam entered, guiding Ethan's broken form over the threshold from which none had ever returned. Doom seemed sealed, yet hope remained, where duty called a soul to arms against ultimate horrors. Dust forgotten, centuries thick coated blackened walls and galleries winding endlessly forever into lightless bowels of perdition. Through twisting corridors came fitful stirrings and amorphumbras, glimpsed through miasma at the borders of sight. Liam pressed on through mounting terror and revulsion, clinging to purpose with slipping desperation. At journey's end, a yawning abyss gaped beyond rotted balustrade, penetrating black depths plunging into very roots of nightmare. A noxious miasma rose like incense, caressing memories of profanation and violation carried on its febrile breath. With shaking hands, Liam drew his charge near and gazed into the abyss to face his doom. In fathomless night, spectra moved with a life of their own. Gaunt shapes, not meant for living eyes, shifted and slithered without form or function, discernible to sanity. Unseen nitises pulsed and contracted in fell congress as chitinous clicking permeated the miasma. Liam knew he gazed upon the cancer at reality's heart, source of all blight, infecting soul and flesh alike. Somewhere below, a fell presence stirred in response to their arrival. Its uncanny senses perceived intruders upon its unholy nuptials, turning sights of madness upon the fray figures silhouetted against surrounding dark. Liam curled protectively around Ethan, feeling alien perceptions probing his very soul for ingress and purchase. Madness beckoned as night boiled, promising oblivion or worse. "Stay your feet, pray," hissed a sorceress erupting from the abyss to crawl within Liam's mind. "Here be dragons, angels, and gods beyond mortal ken. Turn while you remain yourselves, or embrace your fates." Resolve tempered to adamantine within Liam's bleeding soul. Clutching Ethan close, he lifted his chin and spat defiance into the well of night. "We did not come for parley. Demon, release your hold and let judgment fall, and let judgment fall." Laughter like grindings of restless dead answered, sending frigid fingers creeping along spines. "Very well, come and know our mercies. All shall be welcome to the feast." Roiling shadows coalesced at the pit's brink, taking monstrous form to lunge. The trial of souls was joined. Talons rent empty air as Liam lurched aside, dragging Ethan into the sheltering miasma. His breath caught in raw lungs at the horror lunging after. Formless malice, given nightmare flesh, and extinguishing any hope of mercy or quarter. This thing knew only corruption and profanation of all life. Through shifting vapors, Liam fled with his charge, feeling alien senses hounding their every move with malice akin. The abyss proved a labyrinth unto itself, winding pathlessly into nether abysses beneath even hell. Their faint luminescence proved beacon for horrors, hunting in the gloom, herding them ever deeper as sanity threatened to buckle under mounting terrors. A sorceress assailed Liam, even beyond hearing, crawling within flesh and thought alike with terrible purpose. His grip upon existence and self began to fray, offering purchase for the presence to burst forth and possess his shattered vessel. Only iron will and love for Ethan anchored his fading soul as the trial reached its grim crescendo. A cavern yawned suddenly ahead, pillars winding with nightmares rearing monstrously within. Liam stumbled within, gaze flitting for escape or weapon as the presence closed with breath like charnel winds. Yet some new instinct stirred fleeting hope, even in that dismal hour. Eyes met across the shrinking void, and recognition kindled. Within that shattered vessel now stood not Ethan, but the puppeteer, glamour shed to reveal a being beyond mortal ken or comprehension. Liam knew then. He gazed upon the cancer's heart, nexus of all corruption, blighting this accursed realm. No. The will that was Liam Thatcher raged against engulfing night. You will not claim him. Demon, I have come for judgment, and here our trial shall find its end. Laughter, like grinding ossuaries, answered, carrying forth the entity toe computational limb across the final boundaries. Its coming shattered nightmare pillars asunder, releasing legion demons, bound to its bidding across the centuries. Sisters, lovers, tools, all are but pieces in deeper games. Its crawling malice echoed within the ruins of Liam's mind. Farewell, morsel, and know our dark mother's embrace. Despair and madness writhed at the threshold, yet from Ruin's heart a spark kindled more fierce than any inferno. Liam Thatcher stood ready to battle, not only for his life, but the very continued existence of all whom this demon lord had claimed across the eons. With a broken battle cry to shake the abyss, he charged to meet the coming of ultimate corruption. Their conflict would see one destroyed utterly, and with it the fate of countless souls. Here was the storm's eye. Here would humanity make its final, desperate stand. Unholy strength coursed Liam's frame as alien powers imbued his flesh for the battle to come. Steel met chitin with impacts to crack mountain stones. Yet still they fought on, as legions joined the fray. Through it all, one thought echoed. Save Ethan. End this blight. Let justice fall, though all creation burn. Across shattered pillars and collapsing walls, the battle raged without signs of relenting. Liam bled profusely, yet would not falter, hounding the monster at every turn. Realization kindled in its awful gaze. For the first time, it faced a foe that would not break, could not be bent or used. Here was an enemy that would fight until the dying of the light itself. Its death cry rent the abyss to its foundations, summoning allies from beyond time and space. Liam stood alone amid ruin as night split asunder, revealing blasphemous stars beyond, all guttered out then, in a cataclysm to destroy soul and sense, undoing eons of profane toil across the veil. Silence fell. When vision cleared once more, Liam found himself amid familiar ruins. As dawn broke, the pale light like balm to a shattered spirit. Of the conflict remained not a trace, save scars that would never fade. Slowly, hope kindled anew. As the golden sun crested shattered towers, Liam realized his ordeal had ended. All trace of the abyssal corruption had vanished like wisps under light's pure gaze. Freed souls finally at peace. Freed souls finally at peace. Yet deepest scars remained within, and one last trial awaited completion. Weariness fled before renewed purpose as Liam sought Ethan amid familiar ruins. At journey's end, within a colonnade sheltering granite, he found not a broken vessel, but innocence restored. Joy and relief welled as brother recognized brother, their bond transcending all darkness. Days passed in blissful calm, Liam nursing Ethan's spirit back to health under the restorer's benevolent boughs. Memories surfaced slowly through troubled waters, revealing fragments of the entity's profane hold, yet no purchase found. New growth flourished amid eroded columns, reclaiming life after long ages buried in shadow. Yet, Liam sensed the trial was not yet over. Justice remained to be served upon the manor, casting its dark pall over all. Resolve kindled anew as brothers walked familiar paths once more. This time, as equals united forever against all night. Vines parted before a crumbling doorway, beyond which decay had not yet claimed. Within pristine chambers frozen since some cursed epoch, traces lingered of rituals blighting soul and flesh, for their dark patrons biding. Brothers exchanged a grim nod, advancing to face the Coven's last redoubt together. Arcane script burned their eyes from walls and floors, resonating fell purposes long buried. Heavy silence hung like incense, veiling some unholy rite. Deeper they delved into sacrilege, wrought upon hallowed stone and beam. At journey's end, a cryptic chamber lay sealed since the dawn of days. Sigils pulsed with vile life as Liam smashed defiling wards, crumbling a wall of night. Beyond, robed figures paused their chants, turning as one toward intruders upon their unhallowed congress. Malice blazed within dark robes, hosting no souls, only vessels of a being whose essence spanned the eons. Liam stared into the abyss, which had nearly claimed all light, allowing no purchase for its corruption evermore. Here, its puppets would meet their end, and all blasphemy be undone forevermore. As one, brothers charged to meet justice upon the Coven. Their combined fury saw none escape righteous wrath, banishing every trace of the entity which had polluted this place. Beyond redemption, when echoes faded upon the still glade, only 2 souls yet remained, amid ruins reclaimed by twilight. Hand in hand, they walked into the roseate sunset, leaving behind a cursed place finally at peace, though scars lingered in memory's depths. New life would spring from ages of desecration. In reclaimed wood and bridle, spirits soared as one toward radiant tomorrows, where even nightmares might find redemption at love and hope's hands. Thus ended the saga of the house on the hill, lands healed by souls who overcame darkness through indomitable bonds between brothers.